Hello, this is Gloria here, and today I wanted to do a podcast for my final project for my introduction to rhetorical analysis class. But it's actually going to be a podcast slash video podcast because of COVID times. I was not able to be in the same room with my friend, so you're gonna have the interview slash talk after this part. I wanted to discuss the representation of women in horror films, and especially the series that was released on Netflix on October 2020, The Haunting of Bly Manor. Even though The Haunting of Hill House was such a hit, I wanted to talk about this one because it's the most recent, and it was really good to be honest. So there are undeniable differences between the role played by a woman or a man on horror films. Usually women are portrayed as weak, as the damsel in distress, as a housewife, as a final girl, as the girl that always has to be next to the male. And sometimes the woman is portrayed as the killer or she always has to sacrifice herself. So I wanted to analyze that and to see, like, in 2020 we are still having those stereotypes. And even though I think that The Haunting of Bly Manor kind of breaks those stereotypes, we still have like a range of women. And then we have Danny, who is a strong character that saves the whole story. So I hope you like this video slash podcast, that you find it interesting. It's going to be full of spoilers, so I'm so sorry, Dr. Hardline. And I hope that you, after listening to us, you have the desire to watch it. It's not as scary as it might appear, and I think that you actually like it. So I'm just gonna transition to the conversation, and let's go. Welcome everyone to the first and last episode of Susto Podcast. My name is Gloria, and today we'll be talking about the evolution of women representation in horror films and the more recent Netflix show, The Haunting of Bly Manor. But I'm not going to be alone because we have a special guest. She's not afraid of what hides in the dark and loves horror movies, biologists by day, horror movie inspector by night. Give it up for Itzel Guzman.
Hello. Hi, Gloria.
Hello. So as I already mentioned, you love horror and you love to watch a lot of movies that are really scary for a lot of people, including myself. So you were one of the people that suggested me to watch this show, and I actually loved it. We're going to talk about it more because I saw the representation of women in this specific series, because I feel like in The Haunting of Hill House, we have the representation of women, but I think on that one, the main role was the guy. He was the one kind of like that saved the story, but on this one, I think we have different characters that are kind of like holding the story better.
Yeah, on The Haunting of Hill House, yeah, like you were saying, it's mostly about the brother, but this one, yeah, it's everybody being part of this whole mess. That's, the haunting.
I think that when we look at the contrast of the male characters, we could see that there are few, and even though they're relevant to the story, they don't play a major role as the women do. Some of the women, we have like Danielle, Flora, Hannah, Viola, and Jamie. Even though Jamie, we don't see the relevance in the, but we do in the end. And then of course we have also Rebecca. I think that's one that we can talk about in contrast with the other women, like for say with Danielle, and when we look at Rebecca. So what do you think those are the main differences between those characters?
So Danielle, okay, so like they have some common ground in which they both kind of like pressured for them to get hired. They know how to play their cards well. They're both smart, but yeah, their main difference I think is when it, I don't know if it helps, their like when it comes to liking men, because that would be considered, I guess, the flaw for Rebecca is that her downfall was caused because of a man, while Danny is not that interested in men, and she develops a relationship with the other lady, Jamie. So I don't know if it's also having to do with that, because the Rebecca's lover, he was very impulsive, while we see like Jamie, while she's a bit impulsive, she's not doing like all this risky business like stealing
Yeah,
and all of that.
yeah, I agree. I think that it does influences the way that they are and they are playing the story, like Danny, and then
Yeah,
she has this relationship with Jamie that seems more solid and kind of like what she wanted from the beginning. And then Rebecca, she seems like she was just following this guy, and even though her death, when I find out what actually happened, like it was so selfish of him to ask her, like to, well, he didn't even ask. So that was my main issue, that he didn't even ask for to had he didn't even ask her to do a sacrifice. He just sort of like,
expected her to like go along with the plan. Like, we're gonna do this, and this is gonna be our happy ending.
yes. And also I think that same thing happens with kind of like Flora at the end, when she thinks that everything is a game, and that Rebecca's boyfriend is like the good guy and the one that's gonna finally reunite them with their parents, and actually he wants to take over their bodies. So
Yeah,
that was crazy. So when we see the contrast between the characters, like the male characters, even the little kid who was bound to this guy, uh, the way that he acted, even though he was protective of Flora, I think he also was kind of like trying to control her and not really telling her the truth, because it's in the end that we see that Flora is the one that, well, I guess Rebecca is the one that finally realizes what's going to happen, and that Flora is gonna become another Rebecca. So that's why she didn't want her to go with the spell, and that's why Rebecca didn't take over her body.
yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Rebecca like saw herself a lot on Flora of following um, the pretty much the men in their lives. One of the things that I do also want to point out is like, um, you know, with Rebecca, of course, I think she's more of that classic damsel in distress. Also, she was expecting, I guess, the guy to save her, and then we also have Hannah telling her, like, hey, open up your eyes, like this guy is not good for you, and we see that Hannah, kind of does take like her own lead, and Rebecca doesn't really end up doing that. Of course, like Hannah, goes through and kind of like sees the whole storyline, and I don't know, it feels more like Rebecca focuses on her own. Maybe that's why they keep going back to the past memories.
So when we look at Viola, so what do you think of her?
So Viola, I don't think she was manipulated in any way, because you can see her being more of that feminist icon. Like she did her own thing. She was the one doing all the money in the house, like keeping track of it. So, I don't think she follows, that idea of what we have from women from back then, being all dainty and following whatever the husband said, because she was the one, with the pants on.
Yeah, that's true. What I think.
And while her sister, of course, was that pushover, she was that idea that we have from women from back then.
Yeah, I agree. I think that even though the storyline, I don't quite remember the year that it's on, but even though Danny's storyline, it's also on the past, I think she doesn't meet the expectations of men either, because when she goes to the interview, that they were saying like, you are a young woman, like you don't have a husband and you don't have children and you want to take care of children, like kind of like, what are you doing with your life and why are you wasting your life and not getting a husband and taking care of other children that are not your own. So I think that that was kind of like I guess we could see like the expectations that they had at the time. So now that we already talked about like the characters, we can talk about more about the last two episodes, but specifically the episode number 9. On this one, it's like when we see that contrast between the shows now in 2020 and the shows back the 60s, 70s, and even the 90s, when we see that the women save the whole town. They are the heroines of the story, and they don't need a man to save the story. So Viola kills Henry, and when she's taking Flora to the lake, then it's when Danny, even though she didn't understand what the words really mean, she said like the spell, like you, me, us, and then inviting the ghost to share her body and her life, and Viola accepts the offer, and then that's when we see the sacrifice. I remember watching the episode, and I was like, man, I don't know if I could do that, because she was, even though she was saving the life of a little kid, and it was Flora, but I don't know if we would have like a male character to do that sacrifice. So
Yeah, so do you think it would be more like, again, that we can't shake off still in, no matter how many centuries go by, that motherly instinct, um, you know, even though now we've given, this more of a heroine role to women, we still have that mother instinct, like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice myself for children.
yes, that's what I was trying to get at. That even though it's 2020, they have to sacrifice themselves for the children. For Flora, which, I mean, I'm not mad, but I was kind of sad that she had to do that sacrifice for someone that was not even her family. But I guess in the end, she saw her as her family. But still, like, it's 2020, we can break that mold where we see this motherly figure in the even in the shows that they always sacrifice themselves. Like, I think that's the movie by Guillermo del Toro. I think it's Mama. I think. Well, also I think The Conjuring too. I think the two, even though she also played like a heroine role. I think we also see like that motherly figure, like the housewife and stuff. But here in 2020, we don't see that, but still.
Mm-hmm. I mean, she still kind of played off, that kind of like, not mainly like housewife, but, she was still doing, duties like, mainly seen with women, taking care of the children. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like, I guess I'm not like too annoyed, that she sacrificed herself, but you do think like, oh, there was other ways, like, Henry was like, all the other guys were ghosts. They couldn't they just jump, Viola?
I know. Yeah, even though they were just like, why they couldn't stop her, and like we talk about the Rebecca's boyfriend and how he was being manipulated too by the whole thing that we're gonna be like happy forever and that we need to get our body back and stuff. But he could have done something to save Flora, but he didn't. And even though Henry kind of tries, it was like too late for him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess now that we bring up also Henry, like, I guess we also see, a darker side of women, because you do have his mother, who and so being really manipulating and trying to scam him out of money. Well, like encourage him, to steal, and so her and I guess his father can have the money.
Yes, we see with that one. I think that we see, as you said, we see the dark side, like the other side of the coin, and then we have. I don't know. I think in the show we have like several different characters, like women characters that are so, I think, complex, and we don't really expect it to be that way. I didn't really expect it to be that way, to be honest. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think this one it gives us like the housewife, the kind of like the rebel, the heroine, and the one that was blinded by love, and then
Mm-hmm.
and I think the one that I really liked, it was Jamie, because she was trying to always be like understanding of what was happening to Danny, like we see on the last episode when they are living together, and then Danny has Viola inside, and then she starts like seeing her on the, I think, on the sink on the bathroom, um, and then I mean, at the end, Danny was not going to let Viola take over her body and to do something to Jamie. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
she began sacrifice herself. And it was sad, but that's her end.
Yeah, you do bring out that, like, that is sad that Danny has to sacrifice herself two times, for the kid and then for her lover.
Mhm. Because one time was not enough.
Yeah.
I think that we cover everything that we needed to talk about between the contrast between the characters, and then we see the differences between the different women that appear on the show, and also kind of like a few of the men that appear on the show. So I don't. Do you have anything else? Do you have any final thoughts on the show?
Um, but I thought it was a great show, and it is awesome how the movie industry is changing, and what's interesting to see, is how they catch up with the current ideas. So we got to remember, um, in the was it in the 90s? I can't remember, the year of the woman. We also have that, and seeing how those movies, represented the thoughts at the time, and seeing, how we're kind of again repeating this like year of the woman kind of thing with, feminism, how we're being represented now. And yeah, I think we're doing great, and especially with movies like this, showing women, are capable of, not having to wait for Prince Charming, that they can take their own lead and actually be an interesting main character. So I think, like, sometimes that's also an issue. Like, how are you going to make a woman, an interesting main character that appeals to various genders?
Mhm.
Especially men. Are they just going to think, oh yeah, she's beautiful, and that's why I'm going to watch it? Or, oh yeah, this person is interesting and I can see somebody like this in real life.
Yeah, you made a really good point, and I think that it really we really see the contrast between our time and all the feminist movement, and like back in the other movies that we already mentioned. And I think that this show makes a really good job representing women, and like it's like for everyone, like every type of woman appears. So I think they do a really good job, and I would recommend this show to everyone that wants to watch it. It's not sponsored. You want to pay us, but well, thank you so much for talking with me, and it was fun having you here. And I think the audience will get a lot from you, and I'm also happy that you accepted to this podcast with me. And yeah, so thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed talking with you. It was such a good show.
Thank you.